We continue our chat on the Finance Ministry. Nene is out, as you know by now. Mboweni is in. And the best news of all, the rand has strengthened against the dollar. With us is economist Lumkile Mondi, Executive Director at Firstsource Money Redge Nkosi, and CEO of Rich Management, Aly-Khan Satchu. Joins us via Skype from Nairobi. Prince Mashele is still with us. Thank you for joining us, all of you. Let me start off with you. What was your response today when you heard of this news? We've had time to digest it. Is it a good thing?
It's a good thing. Remember, the former minister lied. So for that position, he had to pack and go. So I'm very happy about that. And also, I hope that Mr. Mboweni is a stopgap measure that's going to take us to the election. Because I'm concerned about what he's been saying in the public space around a lot of issues, from mining rights to the role of the state in the economy, including the state bank. So I'm quite worried about those issues. Given the lack of commitment to economic transformation by the ANC. Because the ANC is a very good political machine, but in terms of economic management, has shown us that it's got huge holes, that it cannot take this economy and an economic build to serve a few, to build a new economy that will serve the majority. So the NCA doesn't have that capability at all. So I'm a bit worried about that jump.
Okay, Reg, do you think that Mboweni can plug some of those holes? Because you've got to start somewhere.
I'm afraid not at all. He can't. He's not going to do it. He hasn't done it. He has no track record. His understanding of macroeconomic policy is almost zero. He's in fact one of the persons who brought us to where we are today. And I don't expect him to deliver us anywhere else other than to the markets. He's very, very good for the market, but I'm afraid not for the economy.
But he's associated with 5 to 6% growth, which today sounds pretty attractive.
I'm afraid the 5 or 6% growth that we saw, at that particular point in time, we were actually losing people in the jobs. You cannot call that growth as something spectacular. At that particular point in time, actually, we had about 8.8% growth in the financial sector, where he has been gone, he was, all right? And 3.3% in the real sector. That cannot be termed as good economic growth at all. We are losing jobs at that particular point in time.
Aly-Khan, are you such a skeptic? Do you feel that he's got what this country needs?
No, I think he's obviously very well qualified. As you said, he presided over the central bank at a time when it was well managed. Foreign reserves grew from about $10 billion to 30. Given that South Africa has been downgraded for next year by the IMF to below 1% GDP, a 1% GDP expansion, I think most people will think this is a safe pair of hands, a solid appointment. And I think, I heard some criticism about him working for Goldman Sachs, but somebody with a bit of market knowledge and awareness of what his comments might do to the rand, I think is well overdue at the central bank, and I think it's well overdue at the finance ministry. It's been a merry-go-round. Of course, this is not as extreme an appointment as Des Van Rooyen. This is a solid appointment. I think powerful message sent by Nene's resignation. I think it puts a bunch of other ministers on notice, and I think overall, looking at it from both the South African perspective and the rest of the world, I think this is an important message to be sending to the rest of the world at a time of enormous volatility.
And Aly-Khan, sorry, just the fact that you're saying this about Tito Mboweni being out from outside, you've really got your finger on the pulse, whether it comes from the continent or internationally. I mean, that in itself can only be a plus.
Absolutely. I think, we've had such a strange scenario. We've had 10% movements in the rand in the matter of minutes. And I think what the rand desperately needs is some sense and sensibility in the finance ministry. Nene would have provided that, I think. But notwithstanding some of the more intemperate tweets that I've seen Tito tweet, I think he's a real solid pair of hands. And every time I've heard him speak, I thought it made absolute sense. And I think it's a positive sign that you've got somebody at the till who knows what he's doing.
I think we need to tone down the praise, because we are going to get lost in the excitement of the moment.
Again, we should learn that as South Africans.
Exactly, because the rand can react today, and we can wake up tomorrow, it has reacted to something else. What does it change in the lives of a villager who is in Mkandule, for example? Absolutely nothing. What we should be concerned about is what is it that government as a whole is and will be doing to alter the current economic trajectory in order, over time, to change the conditions of South Africans. That is the fundamental question. Let me tell you, Tito is a good man, and I have said this is a good appointment. He will do absolutely nothing to do what I'm suggesting. What is he going to do with the dysfunctionality in our schooling system? Absolutely nothing. What is he going to do with the fact that we buy products from China? Absolutely nothing. So the fundamentals are still problematic, and we must not view him as a messiah.
Basically got nothing to work with.
So, I mean, the state is incapable. We've got a dysfunctional state that cannot deliver. I mean, the service protests that we saw in the predominantly clad areas showed to us that there's something that is cracked fundamentally. So in that, you need capability, you need a capable state just to do what's supposed to be done in a constitutional democracy. So the work around state formation becomes very, very important, because it's that tool that you need to deliver, even though we don't have resources at the moment. So we know, 24 years later, we now know that the ANC is very, very good politically, but incapable in terms of running a constitutional regime. And then the issue among South Africans should be how many South Africans are prepared to raise their hand and join the state, and how open is the state to the resources, particularly white resources, which are outside the state, which need to come in and help us capacity the state, so that state then can be able to affect a constitutional democracy and deliver.
Okay, I mean, you say it's good politically. I mean, some could, question that when you consider what's happening at the moment, even though Cyril Ramaphosa says he is trying to clean up his act. What sort of impact do you think this could have on the elections?
But the electorate may look at Tito as a good pair of hands, and they may obviously support that.
Sure.
But again, we must be very, very careful when we look at the electorate. Whether they understand fully what that means in terms of the broader issues is everyone's guess. In my view, President Cyril Ramaphosa would have done something that he has just missed, to put in place a person who understands the economy. Tito Mboweni understands markets, and markets are not the economy. The market in this country, or markets in this country, are about 13 or 14 key financial institutions. And those are the people who call the shots. That's one of the reasons why he was in fact appointed. Understanding markets tells us nothing about the economy. South Africa is sinking at a fast clip just because we don't have at the Reserve Bank, at the Treasury, people who understand macroeconomic policy at the center of growing this economy.
Okay, let's leave it there. Just hold it there for a moment. We've got a call on the line from Davidton. David, go ahead.
Okay, thank you for accepting my call. My put on the issue is that with the current political scenario, it is only a very good dream to expect him to change things, because if you take the structure of our public sector, people are looking at public servants, but they are forgetting the politicians. Look at the structure that was inherited in 1994 of provinces. This is the way block got to as an MP education if you were to multiply. And these people are just passengers who they get a lot of money, and their VIP protectors are getting a lot of money. Me, a policeman on the street who is curbing crime is at the receiving end as a surplus in the public sector, whereas the political scenario is not even visited at all. Okay. We don't have people, the government of the ANC is always putting new ministers, but the program, the incoming minister doesn't carry on with the program of the previous minister. We're always in the learning curve, whereby we always sounding like a stunted record. We're going nowhere, because each and every one comes with his or his rudeness to prove that I can implement my own policies instead of continuity.
Okay, thanks for that, David. I mean, do you think that's a big issue?
Yes, it's a big issue. And I think Lumkile has hit the nail on the head. if you take the ANC as a party that has been governing South Africa since 1994 and look at its record as a continuity, not divide it into pieces of administrations that succeeded each other, the record of the ANC in the economy is terrible. In fact, the ANC, by the way, I can say it without hesitation, does not know what to do with the South African economy, which is why, from time to time, what it does, it feeds society with slogans. So each president who comes, radical economic transformation, new dawn. So the population keeps excited, dancing to the music of slogans. But when you look at the record, the economy is actually collapsing. So the ANC, let's be honest about it, has no clue what to do with the South African economy.
Okay, let me put that, Aly-Khan, I mean, you hear that, you hear what's coming from my guests. I mean, real cynicism and skepticism about what this government is capable of doing, that the country is teetering on the brink.
Very interesting to hear what your guests are saying, actually, and they're clearly expressing a great deal of dissatisfaction with the South African economy. And I was looking at GDP. GDP expansion has been very anemic, around the 1% mark. So clearly, people are feeling worse off. Cost of living has gone up, and they're not feeling any benefit from the economy. So I appreciate the mood in the country, but I would say that mood is replicated across probably the rest of Africa as well. It's not just unique to South Africa. Regarding populist policy making and sloganeering, you know, this is a phenomenon we're seeing worldwide. But overall, having watched the Zuma administration, having watched what happened during that period, having watched what was a blatant state capture, I've got to say that looking from the outside, I'm far more optimistic that you've got the right people in place. There is no silver bullet. You're not going to go to fast growth overnight. But I tend to think the people, when they're speaking, I find them quite sensible, and I think they're trying to do the right thing. And therefore, I'm much more optimistic than I think your guests are. And quite often that happens when people are up close and personal versus looking at something from afar.
Okay, I mean that's a good point, isn't it?
But the reality, Jane, is that the statistics doesn't lie.
Yeah.
About, in 2012, about 1% of Southern population live in poverty. That's gone to 54%. Unemployment, just saw the other day, has gone up to 27%. Inequality has widened. Earlier on, your guests were showing us, Tumakubule, that actually our per capita incomes are in decline. So what else do you want? Here, with a crisis, we've got a state that is incapable of really restructuring this economy so that this economy can deliver to the majorities, an economy that still continues as the Van Riebeeck started it, and today it continues.
And we are waiting on the ratings agencies on Friday, aren't we? So what are the expectations? I mean,
Well. They're going to be very happy to see a fellow like Tito Mboweni come on board. But those are the worst persons you can rely on.
Well, the thing is, I mean, it's better to be celebrated by them than downgraded.
No, it's because of the way we understand rating agencies, and it's the way we understand our economy. Rating agencies are, quite frankly, quite unaware of macroeconomics. What is at stake here, Jane, is our economic development model. Since 1994, it has not changed. It's the same one. That economic development model is wrong. Built on it is a macroeconomic framework. Tito Mboweni was a governor when we introduced inflation targeting.
But if that model's wrong, it'll be exacerbated by a downgrading, surely.
Well,
it can only be. Everything gets more expensive.
There comes a point when you should accept downgrading for the sake of correcting the issues in the country. We cannot go about crying about downgrading when, in fact, that doesn't give us a chance to retool ourselves. What we need right now is a new development model. On top of it should be what we call a macroeconomic regime consistent with a developing country. What we have right now is something we bought from somewhere. We have been copying things we don't understand. Well, as I speak.
Okay. Right. Well, here's the thing. We can talk complex language and so on. Here's the truth about it. We are not where we are because of rating agencies. So leave rating agencies alone. We are where we are because of things we didn't do ourselves internally.
Yeah, that's correct.
If you look at countries that are actually growing in the world, you will find that growth in East Asia. Countries like your South Korea, countries like your Singapore, countries like your China. They are not growing and employing their people because rating agencies have given them a good rating or they've given them a bad rating. No. They are growing because they've done something to equip their population with skills. So give me skills and I'm going to start a factory and create jobs. It's not complicated. So you can have all sorts of good or bad policies. But if you have a population that is unskilled and uneducated,
you'll never get
and you want to, it's like wanting to build a house and you don't have bricks. So that's the crisis of South Africa. And we must stop talking about this stuff in the sky and talk about the concrete things. We have a population, a black population, that is unskilled. The ANC over the past 25 years has not skilled the black population. It has failed black people. So the question is, what must be done in order for us to begin a process of empowering ordinary black South Africans so that 25 years hence, we don't sit and have the same debate? That's the key question.
Let's see what George from Magaliesburg has to say. Go ahead, George.
Yes, I just want to add, but let her give opportunity. Let's say, as a woman being, as a South African, let her give him a chance, Tito Mboweni, and then see what's gonna do. Because I hear the gentleman here busy talking. What's gonna do? Yes, there's nothing she's going to do. But let him give him chance. Let him give chance him, and then see what's gonna do. Because we see our Randy is in trouble, but let's give him chance, please, guys.
Okay, George, I know we sound like a miserable bunch, don't we? What about giving him a chance? Can't we celebrate something?
So what do you have to celebrate? We celebrate the return of power to the people. Because what the ANC promises people that ANC Claudirela, the ANC will do something for you. It's disempowering. So what we need to do is really making sure that the skill development, the focus around education that you've been talking about, Prince, becomes a huge priority. Start at a very basic level. Because that's how we do. I mean, in Cuba, the population was small at the time, in the 60s, after liberation. Castro spent 2 years on the ground making sure the education works. We haven't done, we talk about it, we come with schemes. Now our MEC has gone to Finland, and you say, what are you going to learn from Finland, when in fact our problems are human-made, and they need just us to get on with it. And
that's the worst thing about it, isn't it? How do you think he's going to work with the unions? Will there be a good relationship there, and how important is that?
I doubt very much. I think unions may be very disappointed to see that Tito is come on board.
No, they have reacted already. COSATU has actually welcomed the appointment. COSATU has welcomed the appointment. Remember that Tito Mboweni, and we must not forget this, by the way, Tito Mboweni is the guy he was Minister of Labour at the time. He is the one who transformed South Africa's labor legislation. And in the main, by the way, South Africa's labor legislation, it's progressive. It protects the employee. That's the core of South Africa's labor regime. The markets, they are crying foul as we speak. They don't like it because they want the ease to hire and fire. But Tito actually introduced a regime that protects the worker. So there's no reason why, by the way, the labor unions should be negative towards the appointment of Tito, because he has actually delivered something that they've been calling for.
Okay, so, all right, so, I mean, it's agreed that he's got to, work from the bottom up. Aly-Khan, let me just bring you in now. So a lot of work has to be done, education, obviously, invest in South Africans. But Aly-Khan, I mean, when you look at what's happening internationally, for example, Donald Trump's tariff wars, how much damage could that do?
No, I think, if you look at external conditions, they were incredibly benign for frontier emerging market economies for the last 2 years, and until about April this year. African governments raised a whole lot of debt in that early part of the year. but we've seen circumstances change so dramatically. The IMF likes to talk about exogenous conditions. Exogenous conditions worldwide have become much darker. You know, it just took one tweet from Trump to move the rand nearly 10%. You've seen what's happening in the Turkish lira. You can see the weaknesses spilled across the globe, and the conditions are entirely different. Therefore, you know, I think someone like Tito, with his market awareness, his knowledge of the labor market from his earlier times, his steady hand, are exactly the right person you want at this moment when you look at it from an external perspective. I can't think of anyone better, really, to have in that seat at this moment, where it's very difficult and where South Africa...
We're going to have to leave it there. So a bit of doom and gloom here, but a bit of optimism from an international perspective. Aly-Khan Satchu there, Prince Mashele, Redge Nkosi, and Lumkile Mondi. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, that's our show for tonight. The news is up next, but first, in the words of Casper Nyoas, Tito Mboweni, Shasha.